Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get this started. I am a little bit early, and I know I will have people join me. And I'm recording this today. This is virtual Tuesday in business, BISS 4403. And let's go over there. And I know I will have some of you join me. Of course, those of you join me as I start early, and I'll probably conclude a little bit early. You'll have an opportunity, of course, through the magic of the video, go back and to scroll back and see what I had to say early on. All right, I want to get us opened up today because we're coming to the second phase of the course. In the first phase of the course, we talked a lot about the conceptual material, or the idea of the wisdom triangle, and that is data that gets converted to information that gets converted to knowledge, and knowledge that gets converted to wisdom. Okay, we talked about that. We talked about the concept of a data warehouse. What is it? And what does one of them look like? And in the assignments that are due on the 13th, which is, as my calendar says, Thursday, okay, you had access workshops 1, 2, 3, and 4 to upload, and we went through those using the database. It's that example of a database, Northwind Traders. We learned about dimensions, i.e. attributes. We learned about fact tables. We learned about data mining. Okay, we learned about taking data and converting them to using data from a database and converting it to data that we use in a spreadsheet application. We even looked at mapping and how mapping today, digital mapping, allows us to add layers into a base map and make sense of it. We looked at just the whole explosion of what we call unstructured data, and I provided you through curating links and so forth, a whole bunch of information about databases, practical applications of them, etc. All right, and I've even got some here. And again, I've got a link to GIS, and this is the Living Atlas of the World. Here's a link to MedAir that uses databases. Here's a live traffic control. Obviously, they use databases, data warehouses, and then a flight view flight tracker, which is one of these applications that are out there. Now, that are out there you can use to find out your flights or what's going on with the flight. Now, again, you have on the 13th, which is Thursday, you have the POTSI Chapter 2, okay, and POTSI Chapter 3. Notice you have time limits and items on each of them. They're open book, open note, and you'll need to get them done. Now, I'm over here today in the underground academic bunker, and I had to be over here, so I'm crossing you up. For some of you, you may be just feet away from me over in the lab. Some of you are, who knows? I would have to warn you, and I am all of my classes, although I offer a hybrid format, I still expect that you will attend class, i.e. by viewing the lectures. I can track, and I'm going to start my first review this week, and those of you who haven't been seeing each lecture at least once are in trouble. Glad to see you. And who is this? Hi, Libby. Glad to see you. And if you can scroll on back, I started early. So if you don't scroll back, you'll miss 150 extra points. There's a secret word I have there, and I told everybody, but you don't have to tell them, okay? And the secret, its secret code is drink more Ovaltine. Anyway. As I was telling everybody, this is the week where I start to do the inventory. I'm glad to have you here, Libby, of those who have been attending, i.e., looking at the screencasts at least once, each of them within a week's period. If you have not been doing it, you need to get caught up, those of you out there in screencast land, because if you don't, I'm going to have to count you absent. And if I have enough of those, you become a non-participant in this course. And it may not be voluntary on your part. So these are serious things. I post these. We're having class now. I can provide you all the convenience in the world, and also provide you that opportunity within that week to see the screencast. And I know I've got many of you who are listening out here, your eyes are going back here. Why would you not do it? But I would do it. We'll be tracking that data, so beware. Now, again, as I mentioned, we're kind of in a second phase of this course. We've learned about the data architecture, or the data warehouse. We've learned about the data warehouse concept. We've learned about the wisdom triangle, talked about that. We've learned about data architecture, or data modeling, and that was where I went through that, the who, what, when, where, and factual types of data. We've talked about the analytical cube, and as I've said over and over again, this technology of a database is designed to let us collect, organize, and then extract data that we need. Now, as you saw in Access Workshop, in the Access Workshops, we've been doing some exporting from Northwind traders. And so when we do that, it's really no different than what happens when you have a database that provides the foundation for what people use the term is a dashboard. No difference whatsoever. So you've seen how it works. For you as the end user, and the reason this course is important for you to have and to take is that if you're not collecting the right data, you've got garbage. And you're going to hear me say that in every single course, especially though if you spend the money, as a lot of people do, to spend a tremendous amount of resources on data collection and data extraction. When people ask me, how much should a company spend on IT? I will tell them the normal company, it's about a 6 to 7% of their gross, and their heart stops. If they're a knowledge-intensive firm, then they're talking 10 to 12% of their gross. That's a big investment, but you have to do that because of the nature of things. Nonetheless, what we've done is we've gone through the process, so we've kind of given you the big picture, and I've got some curated examples of how people can use databases for good and that type of thing, and I've provided them here. All right, and it's the course. We try to give you enough of an understanding of the back office of this that when you communicate with the people in IT, you can do so in an intelligible way. If not, now, that's the first piece. The second piece is for you as an end user to understand that this has to be a process that calls data for you that's mission-oriented. If information technology operates correctly, it's decision-centric, and you'll hear me say that over and over and over. If it's data that you don't intend to use, don't collect it. And I've told my famous story about a church I worked with where for the new member, they had the new members fill out a card. It had 47 items. I frankly doubt that a person who's a visitor is going to sit down and fill out a 47-item questionnaire. I don't think it's happening. I told them, you're getting all these reports with no information because the people who visit are not going to provide all of that to you. It was all kinds of questions. I said, get what you need, okay, which is probably going to be contact data and maybe religious affiliation, but all this other stuff, wait, okay? And so they browsed around, but worked through that process. And you've heard me say, anytime I work with a client, I do all my work now. If I don't charge anybody anything, there's no point. I just simply say, look, if you can't tell me the 5 things you need to know today, you need to rethink your IT and your use of IT in your company. So the database and the data architecture and data marts, which are nothing more than specialized databases, that are part of a warehouse, and linking them and all that stuff has got to have a purpose behind it. It's got to be mission oriented. If it's not, it's a waste of time and a waste of money, and it's not a panacea. But as you've seen, we can collect data, and we can begin to discipline. I think when you use IT properly, especially when you use a dashboard system, you force a company to have a discipline in their focus that they can easily lose. And a lot of companies tend to forget why they're here. What is their value proposition? Why do people pay me to exist? And often what will happen is companies will kind of drift and their industry will change, and they may wake up one day and find out, I'm in a completely different industry than I thought I was in at one point. If any of you are taking the MIS class with me, yesterday after I did the lecture in there, okay, I sent a link to everybody for an interview with Reed Hastings, I believe it's his name, who is the CEO of Netflix. And it was interesting, as you listen to him talk, he clearly understood that his company was going to be able to evolve in 2 ways. One, it couldn't be married to or stuck in a technology. The technology will change. And if you've used Netflix over the years, like I have, it's gone from they mail you a DVD or a CD, a DVD, to a live streaming experience. And now they are in the content business. They're making their own movies and content. So they're no longer an aggregator and distributor of content, but they're also now in the business of making content. It was interesting to hear, as he was in that interview, talking about what movies they selected. And the selection process really meant for them to go to someone whoever Paramount or whoever owned the movie, and to say, we want to stream your movie. And the party who owned the rights to that movie would say, okay, give us $1 million or whatever. But they had to think like a curator of saying, okay, what portion of this ought to be action films, etc. It's interesting to hear him talk about that. So he understood, and then moving to the streaming piece. The second part was, it was very clear that he understood that technology information technology is a different type of technology than we've ever had or encountered before, because it tends to create models by which we can do business. If nobody had ever thought about a database and collecting a database, there wouldn't be a Netflix, there really wouldn't be an eBay, there wouldn't be an Amazon. They're all focused on this idea of, I find stuff, I collect it, I store it, and I provide it to people that want it. Okay? So that being said, we're going to move into this phase. I'm glad to see all of you. I started earlier, so you'll want to go back. We're in the phase now. We're going to do some work with structured query language. Now, you say, why are we going to do that? Simple answer. As we work through the Patrick text, and that's the SQL Fundamentals, the 3rd edition, we're not only going to be working with SQL, SQL, however you want to pronounce it, we're also going to be able to see how Oracle code is written, and the textbook will also provide you quite a few examples of what the dashboard of Oracle looks like. Now, Access will be working in it, and Access is the progenitor basically of all of them, of the commercial products. So you're going to get to see I call it the Gestalt, which is German word for the world view or the picture, okay, of what a database looks like from the end user side. And you'll see as we go through the Patrick text, you'll see how the SQL, structured query language for Oracle, is tweaked a little differently, but most importantly, you'll get a chance to see what it looks like. And this is to prepare you so that at the end of the course, if you choose, okay, and the Patrick text will walk you through this, if you choose, you can download a baby form of SQL and work with it. You're also going to get a chance, if I'm not mistaken, we're going to work with SAS, Visual Analytics. I've shown you about Esri, the mapping software over there. And again, there are so many products proliferating out there, but I wanted to get you to the ones that were the major. And really, it's Oracle, if I'm not mistaken, probably has the largest market share. And so when you're out, when you go for a job interview, you're going to be in a position to say to an employer, I've worked with Oracle, I've worked with Access, I've worked with SQL, I've worked with these other data, but I think it's SAS, Visual Analytics, if I'm not mistaken, that I have you use. I've worked with these products, so, and I understand how they work and what they're supposed to do for us. That gives you a tremendous advantage over other applicants, because those applicants will come in with pretty good spreadsheet skills, but that's rapidly that's fine. But we're in this time now where we're seeing the use of databases, and what the amazing part is through mobile computing, okay, and with so many transactions occurring online, there's so many dimensions that we can look at. It's just absolutely, it's mind-boggling. So this is, and then as we move to embedded computers and sensors and things that we're already there, who knows where it will end. That's why I think it's important for you to see it from the front office view and now in the back office view. And frankly, as we go through, what we're going to do is we're going to go through a series of, they're called lunches database, and we're going to go through a series of business problems where we're going to take some code, we're going to slap it into a query design, we're going to run the query, and we'll talk about that. And after about a week or two, maybe 3, you'll be going, okay, I see this language. I understand it. This is also, I believe, a way for you to build your analytical skills, because it's structured query language, SQL, okay, or as SQL, is nothing more than a language that tells the database, here's what I want, here's where you get it from, here's the format in which I would like you to give it to me. And so you'll start to see that it's pretty simple. Now, that being said, you'll see as we get to the end of the course the potential for this, and you'll begin to understand why somebody like Amazon, somebody like Netflix, somebody like Facebook can mine hundreds and hundreds and millions of pieces of data and build profiles and purchasing patterns and all of this stuff. So if you're a marketing student, this is the golden age of marketing. Now, with all good things, as the Bible tells us, there are those bad things. And all these wonderful tools that we get, and they're gifts from God, also have their downside. And the downside is an issue like privacy. How much data can I give up before somebody somewhere has too much? I watched it when I was getting ready for work today. Getting ready to work. I saw they had a short informational, had a short little blurb in the news. It was about the use of facial recognition by the TSA. And Congress has told the TSA, we want a biometric method of determining who this traveler is. Now, one of the interesting things was that the TSA did a test, and they've got some pretty good consultants working with them in firms, and they found that the software identified 28 members of Congress as people who were potential terrorists, which was interesting. What was even more interesting was that facial recognition software seems to have some problems when it works with people, when it's applied to people of color, and the people of color were disproportionately selected, which means the human element of that selection process needs to be looked at. The facial recognition software is, someone's got to build the programs and the algorithms for it to work. So they've got some work to do. In Europe, if you've gone to Europe, and I think it's been a while since I've been there, but everywhere in Europe, they have cameras. They monitor every street everywhere, and people there have a little bit less sensitivity about privacy at that level. Now, your individual data, that's a whole different story. Over here, we tend to we really have not bought into that yet, of using that kind of technology. But it's just a matter of time before you have TVs on every corner, videos, recording things, and all that business. All of that being said, let's talk about for a moment about the logistics of how all of this is going to work. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to Vital Source. And again, thank you, all of you who are here. Now, I see my honor roll. There you are. Glad to see you here. I have a faithful remnant. And I'm going to go to Vital Source, so let me do that. And I think I have this textbook loaded in. If I don't, I know it's going to be over at Amazon. And let me log in there. Okay, and let's sign in. And let me see if I have it in there. No. Okay. So what we'll do then. And this is one of the required texts. I'm going to go to Amazon here real quickly. And let me move that out of the way. And I'm at Books. And I'm going to put SQL the fundamentals. Okay, SQL fundamentals. And there you are. And that's going to be the John Patrick text. Okay. Here it is. Now I chose it because it's got some building blocks there. You see the SQL? Isn't that cute? And this is the book that we're using to do this. Now, as I mentioned, let me jump us ahead now since you've seen the text. And I want to jump us ahead to show you what we've got going on next week. And so we're going to do some work for the coming week. Lunches Database 1, 2, and 3 are going to be due next week on the 18th. All right, pardon me, on the 20th. And what we'll do is we're going to go into a database, a table that he's created for us to work with. Then we're going to take code and we're going to copy and paste it into Design View and Access and run the queries. Now, if you want to, what you should have done already, but probably have not, would be to review pages 23 through 30, because he's going to talk, he talks with us there about the lunches database, okay? Now, there's a preface over there. You can read it, some good information. And if you have the book, and you really should bring the book or have it with you there when we do virtual, notice over on page 7, you're going to see the major SQL products. These are all products that are out there that are sold to companies to use to do their data warehousing and mining, etc. They're all based on SQL, okay? Now, you'll see over on the right side there are other products, SQL products, and those based on structured query language. So we're kind of, what we're doing is we're opening we're opening the hood, looking under the engine. And as you can see, all of these different vendors are based on structured query language or SQL. And so by working what we're doing here with Access, and you'll see as we do with the Oracle, you're getting a picture of what most of them look like, not exactly, but close enough. So you'll have a high comfort level of those. And this book is a good book. I'm sure if you were to go, he probably has a page. If he had a newer edition, you'd see a page 8 and a page 9 that would include all the other new products that are out there. So and don't get freaked out by this, because we're going to be taking code that's been pre-created. We're going to put it into a design view. We're going to run queries, and that'll give us some examples. It's going to show us what we can do. Now, let's go over here to the files area, okay? And as you come down here, you're going to find the Patrick text and the student files for it. Now, you're also going to see some things like lunches database 8, and they has a series of cases, okay? And we're doing these lunches databases, and these coincide with chapters, okay? And you'll see that as we walk through the process. Now, there's Northwind Traders, which we used, and here it is. It's the Patrick Materials zip file, okay? Let's do this right now. Let's download it to your desktop. I'm using Chrome's, and that's my preference, so I'll take Chrome, and I'm going to show up my folder, okay? I'm going to diminish my browser. I'm going to take the Patrick Materials and put them over here on my desktop. All right? Now, I'm going to open it up, and here's what I'm going to find. All right? Move these up here. I'm going to find the code for specific chapters. You'll see some revisions that he's noted, and then you're going to see this thing called SQL Fun 2007. Now, I'm going to take this database and I'm going to put it over here on my desktop. Why? Because I'm going to do a little bit of work with it today, all right? And I'm going to upload it. So you say, what are we working on? Well, we're going to be working on, I'll go back up here, over in the modules, and we're going to be working on lunches database 1, okay? And I'll show you that right here. This is the Patrick text, and you really do need to read pages 23 through 30. Now, let me say this. I think you got enough when you took 1123 to understand about the parts of a table and all of that. However, while I say 23 through 30, that's kind of cursory reading. I really think you need to maybe go back and review all the way back to the first of chapter 1, where he gives you an introduction. Now, a lot of that, okay, is stuff that you know already. Some of it, though, about the shape and design of tables and how we work with them is going to be important to understand. The other thing is he's going to talk. He gives you there on page 3, okay, a good overview of the difference between SQL, okay, or SQL, and what makes it different from regular computer languages, okay? And it's a declarative computer program, the language. The focus is on the result, okay? And that's not the same as a full-blown computing language, right? Now, you've got that Lunches Database 1, and all are from the Patrick text. And this is from pages 23 through 30. Again, I think it would be a good idea for you to read that introductory chapter and talk about storing information in tables. Now, let me stop for a moment and just kind of give you a brief overview of why that's something to understand. We tend to organize data in tables because we're just used to doing that, and we grew accustomed to doing it in spreadsheets. And it's a way for us to organize things like if you have a set of drawers, you really have a set of tables. You really have a set of tables there. You have a table. You've got drawers for it. It's the same thing with tables of data. And we're so used to working with in spreadsheets, it just kind of has become second nature. Now there's a problem, and that is a lot of the data that we want to analyze does not fit that structure. So there's a lot of what is out there called unstructured data, and you'll be learning about that and hearing about that. That's data that's things like the network data. For example, who are the followers of Kim Kardashian? Who are the followers of President Trump's when he does his Twitter sphere, as people will say, famous people like that? What happens when something goes viral? What does that look like? And who tends to be a player? Where does this stuff come from? So, and it's no different than locational data, etc. But we have to work with it differently. We have to convert that data into tabular data so we can work with it like we want, okay? Now, I'm going to, and I want to point out something to you also that I think is very, very important, all right? I have a link here for you regarding the visual information seeking mantra. You said, what in the world is that? This is a way that we think about taking data and visualizing it, putting it into visual form, because human beings respond to patterns more than they do to rows of numbers, okay? And you'll recall when we did 1123 that we used forms to input data to populate a table. And the form is this kind of picture, and you could have a form that has, the picture of your puppy and all that stuff. The form is designed for the human eye. As human beings, we respond to patterns. So at the end of this, okay, we have this database architecture from which we extract data. We take that data and we throw it into an environment where we can compute it. And then once we've computed that data, then we visualize it. And that's very, very important. So this visual information mantra is something really worth to be thinking about. I can tell you at the first of school, I remember talking to Dr. Walker, and somebody, I'm not going to say who it was, they put up they put up a bar graph. And the bar graph added up to more than 100%. So somebody somewhere is fudging the numbers, didn't know what they were doing or whatever, which I thought this is remarkable, because they really, and I don't know how many times a day I will see data that are portrayed in the exact opposite way than you should. And the worst are people who go crazy with what they call these VISs, these visual infographics. If you want to see some really good visual portrayal of data, okay, you can go, for example, over to 538. That's 538. That's folks who are affiliated. I think they're still affiliated with the New York Times, but they do all kinds of predictive information. Their whole thing is about crunching numbers and making predictions, and they have some beautiful visual portrayals of data. So I wanted to make sure that you see that. All right, and I'm going to click on this source for just a minute, and we'll go outside here. I try to procure or curate some things for you, okay? And the panel, let's go over here. This is the InfoBISS wiki, okay? And they've got all kinds of examples about what's going on. And they have competitions. They're building, it's a wiki, okay? And I'd like you to see that so that you can get an idea. Now, here's something that's interesting. And let's stop for a moment. And this is a bit of serendipity. I'm going to click on this thing, and this is going to take me over to some kind of news, all right, about the hurricane. But instead of doing that, I'm just going to go right over to the Weather Channel. Meteorologists and folks of that ilk have learned how to take data and portray it in a way that we can automatically understand it. And we'll go over here for just a minute, okay? Now, all of these beautifully rendered maps that shows you, oh, here's Bermuda, uh-oh, here's Charleston, here's that bad person, this is Florence, bad gal coming through. Florence is going to grab part of our coast and give us some trouble. We get a data. This is a database with a thermal, okay, and they show you where things are really going to be bad. That's the really red part. Then orange, then yellow, then green. We recognize that. We see, oh, good to bad, bad to good. Here, we've been given a visual portrayal, of the path of the hurricane. Well, how do they know? Well, first of all, they've got trillions of bits of data, and they've got predictive analytics that will that they know how that storm is going to proceed. And then they show an impact area, and they've got this is a map, and they've got they've added in the hurricane, they've added in place names. Notice that behind here is a topographical map of the United States. And as opposed to one of all, it shows the major, it shows the states, but over here you see the cities because that's what's relevant. Well, I wanted to walk you through this for just a minute so you can see, and that wiki is just really, really worth your time to see. There are some, I've given you also some sources like, for example, the Living Atlas of the World, which has just got some incredible stuff. You're going to have to really train yourself. And that's why in BISS 1123, I have you go through the Stephen Few book on Show Me the Numbers. You're going to be inundated with more and more visual presentations of data, and you've got to be an astute user of it, or you won't see things happening. If you're a finance major, and you're not taking, if you're a finance major, you definitely need to see this because we've got graphic capabilities today. We can look at trends and curves on stuff. Well, that being said, I'm going to diminish my browser here for a minute. All right. And I've got the Patrick materials. And again, we have the access code for specific chapters and some revisions, and then the SQL fund. So we have our data warehouse, and we have some code. Now, one of the most important and incredible innovations that the good Lord's allowed us to do is the development of queries and query engines. You'll hear me and other people when they run a query, they'll say, I've created a view. You say, what's the big deal about that? Here's the big deal about it. When we run a query, we get a picture of the data based upon how we want to see it. It's like I take a picture and I can go in my camera and I can make it look antique or this color or that. It's the same when we go and extract data. You run the query to get a picture of what's in there, of what's important, of that information, which is of importance to us, okay? But here's the incredible thing. Unless I have permission to alter the table stays the same. So if I spend $1 million collecting a table or set of tables of data, and I can run queries that will give me insights about my customers and my transactions and some predictive data that will make me $20 million, am I smart or what? Well, I've been given a gift. And that gift is the query. What gets saved is not a new picture of the table or even the data themselves. What gets saved is the code. That's why when you and I go out and do a search, for example, on Google, Google doesn't have to save the search, it saves the queries. And that's why when you do a Google search for something, it'll start to give you suggestions. Okay? So that's the beauty of this, and being able to save those queries means we have the data. Now, if we have a permission to update tables, and we're going to do some of that, you're going to get to play like you're a database administrator. We now have this ability to analyze data in ways we never even dreamed, okay? And also not only to extract it, but also to visualize it, okay? So they all kind of work together. Now I'm gonna take this SQL fun, and the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna throw it over here on my desktop, okay? And I'll replace the file in the destination, all right? And I'm gonna take this over here for just a second, all right? And I'm gonna scroll that down, and I wanna find, here's SQL fun. I'm gonna open it up, and here's what we're gonna see. As always, and I'll put OK. And I'm going to save this to my desktop as a database. And I'm going to put it on my desktop, and I'm going to call this SQL Fun 2007 Harmon Case 1. All right? So we're going to play around with Case 1, and I'm going to save it. Now, let me know this, okay, where it's all right. And I'm going to enable the content, and then I'm going to close it down here. All right? So I have this SQL Fun, all right? And this is the original database. I now have this, and called and it should be Case 1, so I'll rename it. You do not, if you have an Apple, you do not have access. So you're going to have to work at the lab or at the library. That's just all there is to it. I'm sorry, but you need to learn how a database operates. And Apple, their product it's okay. So I want you to see the basis for all these commercial products are out there. So if you'll need to do that. You'll also are going to need to make certain, absolutely certain, that you download work to your desktop, save it, rename it, and then upload it back. Because if you just open the file up and you work on it and you don't save it to a native environment like a desktop, what I'll get will be some kind of an unintelligible file because it's gibberish. Now, let's talk about this for just a minute. Let's open this up. All right. And so we're okay with that. And I'm just click through some of this. We're all right. I understand all that, and I'll enable the content. Now, this shouldn't look unfamiliar to you. When we worked on 1123, BISS 1123, business problem solving analysis, we cut our teeth on, we put our toe in the water with, I think, 5 or 6 cases. So I'm going to look here at the shutter. Let me start first with the toolbar. It looks a whole lot like Word, a whole lot like PowerPoint, a whole lot like Excel. There's a reason, so that you get a picture in your mind of what the productivity suite looks like, and you get used to tabs, trees, and drop-down menus, okay? And that's pretty typical of what you'll see of the products that are out here. Now, here are our tables, okay? And these are tables of dimensions. And I'll show you, for example, let's open up the foods table. Okay. And this food table gives us the supplier ID, the product code. They've got, and the price and the price increase. This is like it's a dimensions table. Okay. You remember back in 1123 when we were taking tables and we were creating lookup tables. Dimension tables tend to have that type of quality because I have this thing called foods, a dimension, and then I have some subdimensions, if you will, or attributes, supplier ID. Okay. And that means every supplier ID should be unique. Remember, we talked about that concept of primary keys and having a unique record. Then we have the product code, same story there. The menu item, so we number them, what menu item number they are. We have a description of them, and then a price, and then this thing has a price increase. Now we can dive down under the table into this, and we'll click on the design view. And remember, I can click on the tab, or I can look up in the left-hand corner and see the view I want. Now, as you recall, when we worked with 1123, you'll see, this should look familiar to you. We've got this table with the field name and the data types at the top. And then at the bottom, we've got the field properties. All right. And you'll remember, oh, okay, I remember now when we did these input masks, and we did them because we wanted to create drop-down menus in the table so that we could just click and input the record data. So we didn't have to type or anything like that. So you've seen this before, and you remember we've done the lookup table and done that, the combo box, that bit. So there's nothing here that's all that terribly exciting or different than what you've seen before, okay? And what we've got here are the data type, and we'll talk a lot about these data types. Now, you don't have to become an expert on that, but it's helpful to understand that the way we save data and store it costs money. And if you're not parsimonious or frugal in how you store this stuff, you're wasting money. Now, at most companies, the cost is the major cost is not the hardware, it's the person, the human being whose time is spent inputting it, which is why e-commerce and almost every type of interface with a client or a vendor or someone like or a regulator is driven by the end user. They have to fill out a bunch of stuff. When you register for a website or you go buy stuff, you're basically filling in the table. You've been given a form and you're filling in the table, telling them, yeah, here's the card I'll use and all that. They don't have somebody behind the computer typing the stuff. It's just being inputted. Facebook, you're the product. Here's my friends from 10 years ago on business. So we see how these things start to become self-populating, although there are going to be some instances where you'll have people inputting data directly into your company database employees, obviously. Well, there's nothing here that looks too scary, but again, here we see the dimensions, okay? And we'll close that off, and any changes there, all right? And so we're going to play around a little bit with our very first case, and this is where they talk over on page 23. Now, listen, I know that for some of you, that bringing a book to class, I understand that the Patrick text, it weighs maybe 7 or 8 pounds, and I know that that is just too big a burden for you to carry all day. And you have my deep apologies, okay? And I know that if you have it in your backpack, you'll walk a little slower and a little lower because it's such a big, thick, heavy book. I would say this, it makes a great doorstop, and in the event, if it's necessary, you probably could well defend yourself with this book. However, those positive things aside, the negative part is you need to bring it to class with you. Or if you're going through a cast, you need to have it with you, because if you're not going to get it. You're just not going to be, you're not, this will not be of any real value for you. Okay, that being said, I'm going to start over on page 23, and you're going to see they give us some design decisions. You remember we talked about that. We've talked about our information specification, our how we design the information we want. And notice here, okay, he gives us that information there on page 23, all those bullet points. You can read it faster than I can tell you. Then he talks about the lunches database itself, and he starts to give us the structure. And notice over on page 24, he tells us the tables, and we're looking at them. Now, I've selected all access objects here. If I want to just see the tables, I can do that. But I've got all access objects here in the shutter, so I can see everything. Now I'm going to scroll down here, okay? And I'm going to look for any queries, and there will be, and there are a few. Here's the queries that gives us numbers 0 to 99. These let us use constants or build records or serial data. So you'll want to, as we go through the course, you'll see that more readily. It'll be more readily apparent to you. And then we have the form. And notice they have an employee entry form. Okay? Now, I'm going to go to one of these queries, and let's go to the query numbers 0 to 99. Let's open it up. And as you would suspect, it has the numbers 0 to 99. Let's click on the design view and look at that for a moment. And we're going to see this operation, okay? And we're using, and this is using a function, and we're going to get in, and this is part of the field, and we've got a dot digit times 10 plus b dot digit. You said, what in the world is that? Let's go down here for a moment into the SQL view, and I'm going to take this, all right? I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to show you that there's nothing really here to be afraid of in terms of understanding this stuff. I'm going to scroll that up, make it a little bit bigger. Now, here's what it says, and 95% of all, or 99% of all queries are select queries. It's saying select, and you see a dot digit. The A is a pseudonym that we use so we can use the digit table twice. So we have a dot digit, and digit is the column or the dimension, and we're going to take that, whatever's in that, times 10 plus, and notice how we reuse the digit table. We provide another column alias called b dot digit as in, and that as is what, remember, That's where we name a column just using that as, so it's more intelligible to an end user. And then you say, okay, where are we going to get? We're going to get from the numbers 0 to 99 as A. So we identify what's A, and we use the same table again as B. So we've used the same table twice. Okay? Now, what's stored is nothing but this code. All right, well, I'm going to close this off, and we're going to do a little bit of work here. We've got some time. I'm going to diminish this down, and let's go into the Patrick Materials, the zip file. Okay? Well, there it is, and it says access code for specific chapters, and let's open that up. And we've got the access SQL for chapter 1. All right? And let's get that. And you'll notice it's on a notepad, and we're going to open it up. And you're going to see he gives you, he gives you a README kind of thing up here at the top, and then some of the code that we're going to run or execute. Now, let's look for example at this 112. And if you go over here in the book and you go into chapter 1, you're going to see problem 112. And let's find that. And then he tells you this is an example. I'm over on page 19. Now I'm going to come on over here, and then if you look at page 20, he's going to show you the table in the Oracle format. So you'll see him running these parallel kinds of things, and then we're going to see the employees table in the Access format. And then he talks about some of the similarities between Oracle and Access. So I chose this text so that you could work with SQL, but you can also see how Oracle looks like. And as we get deeper in the book, you'll see some of the, you'll see what the dashboard looks like, what a design view looks like, etc. So it won't seem so foreign to you, but they're doing the same thing. And then he talks about some of the differences between Oracle and Access, which is good for you to have. This is a lot of it about formatting data. And then he comes over here to the bottom of page 22 where he talks about the employees table. Now notice here, this is a dimension table, all right? Notice, I've got the employee ID, their first name, their last name, their department code, when they were hired, they have some kind of a credit limit on their expense accounts, it's there, their phone number, and who is their manager. All right? That's a dimension table. It just has a set of attributes, and each employee has an employee ID, and away we go. Now, we're going to go in and we're going to look at that, all right, and we're going to run some code, and it's not a big deal. Now, if you've having taken 1123 with me, there shouldn't be any really big issue when we look at the notepad and open this up. Here at 112 it says select. 99% of all queries are select queries. Why? Because we're getting stuff. All right, we're in the data warehouse, or we're at the data mart, and we're getting what we want. We're throwing it in a basket, okay, and we're gonna pick the stuff up, and then we'll go do something with it. Now, notice that this first instance says select and then asterisk from 1_ employees. Then the semicolon. This says select everything from the employees table. Why? Because that little asterisk there says it's a wild card. You get it all. So we can take this and we're just going to select, okay? And I'm going to go back into the lunches database. And I've got it open. And I'm going to click create. This will start to come back to you if you took 1123, and you're going to go query design, all right? And it says show the table. But we're not going to do that. We're going to go to the SQL view. All right? And we're going to paste in the code. And then we're going to click in honor of one of my favorite movies, and I hope it's a favorite of yours. And I bet you can't guess the movie. Tom Hanks was in the movie, and he had a friend who said, "Run, Forrest, run." Okay? So we've done that, and I'm going to call this the Forrest query in honor of Forrest. I'm going to just call this GUMP1. You say, of course, I can look at your design or the output and pretty much know. And here we go. What we did is we selected everything. Now, we use the wildcard to get that accomplished. Now let's open up this next one. And then you'll see, here's 114. Now, I want you to notice something. The employees table, he'll show us this. And since we've gotten everything for the employees table, what's in there, the beginning table, is the same as what was the ending table, our result sets. And you can see that at the bottom of page 24. Okay? So we've done that first one. I'll close that off. And now we're going to go over here and we're going to go back to our code. It's on the notepad, and it says we're going to work problem 114. Okay, and let's move over there. I'll find table 114, and we'll find problem 114. Here's 113. Here's 114 at the bottom of page 23. Now we've selected everything from employees. Let's get everything from the departments. You say, so if I wanted to do this, I can obviously just use the select and the asterisk and then the from, and I just choose the department. Hello? Yeah. I don't know if you can handle this. This may be too much for you. You may not be able to grasp it. I'm being sarcastic. I'm joking. That's how simple this is. The sad thing is a lot of this stuff, many of you have tricked and fooled yourselves into believing you're no good at math or you could never work in computer science. Don't do that to yourselves, okay? Just don't, because you're a lot smarter than you may believe, and you're often a lot smarter than you're given credit for. But now we can select for employees. You say, now, Dr. Harmon, I want to stop you for a minute. Okay. We've got GUMP1, that was cute. But all I'm doing there is just viewing tables. Yeah. Well, why can't I just go over here and just click on the table and click open? Well, you can. As the end user, you can do that quite easy. It's called the graphic user interface. And I'm showing you what this looks like. There's GUMP, and here's the data view. You say, what do you mean? If you look up in the top left-hand corner, you'll see the view, and I want it to be in the datasheet view, or I want the design view, okay? And that looks familiar to you, or should, okay? And that means we're going to get everything there, or we're going to look at the SQL view. I'll go back up to the datasheet view. And we'll go back down to the SQL view for just a moment. If you look up at the top of the toolbar, okay, you're going to see run, okay, select, make a table. You can make a table, run in query. You can append those. You can append data to a query. You can update a table. Yep. You can do cross tabs, okay, and you could do a union. You could do a pass through. You could and when you do certain types of queries, they're what we call, they have a data definition element, okay? Again, my advice to you is going to be this. If you go to work for somebody and you're fortunate that they have SAS, I like SAS Visual Analytics, probably better than any of them, as a commercial product, then you're going to be spared a lot of trouble, probably because you'll be given a database and told, you'll only be able to access certain things. And one of the great debates that go on now between people who are into the database, into working with the database, and the working with the dashboard is what do people need to see? I bet you have never driven a car that tells you the amount that monitors the suspension in your vehicle. Okay, the closest you probably come is to a thing that'll tell you how many pounds of air you have. All right. You just want to press on something so you know you're in four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive or not. All right. So you want to know the important stuff. And this is where the issue comes in, is what do we need to know? That's where you as a decision maker, understanding how powerful this is and how it can be and how it is indeed a game changer, that you've got to say, okay, why am I using the tool? When is it appropriate to use the tool? Okay? So I don't kill a fly with a shotgun. But if it's a giant black bear and it's after me, I have a way to tranquilize the bear. Because we don't want to kill the black bear. It doesn't know it. It's just doing what you and I provoked it to do. So tranquilize it, all right? And as it goes to bed-bye, fix it up a pillow and have some milk and cookies out there for it, and put all the milk and cookies and all that over in a place where people will not be. I'm being facetious, but you get my drift. So we've run that query, GUMP 1, and now we have the lunches database. So you say, okay, I'm looking at all this code. So you're telling me I've got this code that I can work with. And all I would really need to do would be just click on the icon, and I'd be good to go. Yep, I am. And again, you can do everyone. Now I want to note something. If you can only run one query at a time. And at the end of a query is the magical semicolon. Okay, that's not to be confused with the semifinals in the NCAA basketball tournament, or in the college football playoffs, or in major, etc. Semifinals. Right? The semicolon says, okay, we're through talking, give me some results. So you can run each one of them if you wish, and you've done chapter 1. Now, to really get the most out of this, and it really is why I've recommended to you that you read pages 23 through 30, is so that you can understand these like tables of constants, okay? A lunches table, a foods table. If I can go into a company's database and I can see their dimension tables, I know practically everything about how they do business. Now we're going to take one more little stop here, okay? And I started early today, so I'll be finishing early, about 3:30. Ha ha ha! I'll log off by then. I know who you people are, and I'll find you. You're going to stay here with me for 3. I'm playing. I'm going to do that. So I'm clicking database tools, and we'll be messing around with this a little bit. But I'm going to click on the relationships. And wow, here we are. This shows us, as you remember when we worked with 1123, all the way these tables are related to each other. And it will start to come back to you like the primary key and the foreign key and all of that. But what this also does, more importantly, is it tells me what elements of your business are important. Those are the dimension tables. How do you collect that data and when? Those are what we call facts tables. And how does the data flow through the organization? Data flows through just like money flows through, and it follows a pretty familiar pattern, because as we get later into the course, you'll see how databases can be designed. In fact, we talked about that, the STAR schema, those different schemas that are out there, the STAR, etc. Okay, now, we've basically done number one, okay? And this was for Access Chapter 1. So you've done Lunch's database number one. We've plowed around it, we ran the code, and you should have, and now you'll be in a position to close it up, and upload it. Now, we want to go back to the home station, and we're going to close this database tools off. And we don't need to see the changes, but I want you to see what we've got. GUMP 1, and we've run that table. You have now written the code for and executed a query. You didn't know you were that smart. Again, you can see the different views we get, the layers that go all the way from the end user view down to a design view, down to the code, all right? And you say, so I kind of get it now. When you talk about a map, for example, where you've got layers, absolutely. Go over to Esri and their online maps, and they'll show you, they'll show you, okay, would you like a topographical map of the United States? And then what do you want to layer on top of it? And really what they're saying is, here's a table. Okay, we've stored all this business. They have a geographic information system that stores that map. And they say, what do you want to layer over it? In other words, what do you want to extract from other databases that will put and build the picture? All right, and it's the same process here. All right, and it'll show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to go back into GUMP 1. I'm going to open this up. Now I have my employees. I have data about my employees. If I had their addresses, where they went to college, etc., I could map that data. I could build charts with it, whatever I chose to do. If I'm interested, for example, in the hire date, when did all these people come to work for me? I can throw this out into Excel. I can do a pivot table. I can take those dates, as you remember we did, convert them to numbers, and then get an average. There's a lot here we can do with this. But I wanted to get you acclimated to kind of working around in the environment and play with some code and see what you get. And the first code in there is really nothing more than using a select query, and you use the asterisk as a wild card to get everything. And you say, now, why, again, why don't I just, if I want to see that, why don't I just click on it? Exactly. But in the old days, long before you had a beautiful little product like this to work with, something that was visually appealing, something that you could look at and go, oh, I see it. Okay. You wrote the code. I took the computer science courses I took before at OU. I was the second person in the history of the university to use computer science as my language. Unfortunately, there were no computer science courses, no program. How did I learn computer language? Simple. I took courses with people who were using that language. I took two of them. One's RPG1 and RPG2, which was being used by folks over in the engineering school. And the professor said, he'd had many like me who wanted to come through and learn. He said, I'm going to give you a set of data, and I know what you're supposed to get. You're to learn how to write the code, how to pull that, and I'll give you the data. And if the data are correct, I know you've learned RPG 1 and 2. I learned COBOL, BASIC. Then I learned some database packages that were just starting. One was called SPSS. I bet some of you have used it if you've had a course with Dr. Rourke, which it's out there, but you had to use the library. And the other was BMDP, the biomedical database program. So when I left my doctoral program in 1982, folks, I was state of the art. I said, well, that was gone in about a year or two. And then came the laptops, etc. Nonetheless, you don't have to write that code. It's there if you do a selection. And let's just, so that you can see this, we're going to pull, I'm going to create another query, and it's going to be called GUMP2. So I'm going to over here, I'm going to click create. All right. And then go to query design. And I'm going to choose the suppliers table. Okay. You say, this looks a lot like 1123. Yep, for sure. And I'm going to click add. And then I have a supplier name. Yeah, it's okay. And I'm going to click down here and come down to the under here in the criteria area where I tailor this a little bit, and I'm going to sort it in descending order. In other words, I'm going to use the supplier's name, and it will be from Z to A as opposed to A to Z. And now I'm ready to run it. Now, before I run it, if I want, I can pop up and take a look and see it in a view. Okay, and there it is. Now I'm going to go back down to the design view. I haven't written a bit of code, but if I go back down here, I'll take a look and I'll see the SQL view, and look at that. And I'm going to pull it up so you can see it. Okay, and I'll find my trusty Word doc. There it is. Now watch. Select. Okay. L underscore suppliers dot supplier underscore name. That's saying select from this table L suppliers the following, the data in this column, i.e. this field, i.e. this dimension, the supplier name, from the suppliers table. Now I have another qualifier where I order them. I'm going to order the output in what? Descending order. So now we've worked through a query and we've added a little bit of sauce to it. We've got the data in a descending order. Okay, and I'm going to run that query, and I'm going to call it GUMP2. Okay, because we said run, Forrest, run. So I've got these two queries, and I'm going to close that off. I'm going to close the database off. And now my SQL fund Harmon Case 1 is ready to be uploaded. Now you'll want to upload it, okay, in the place where it says upload lunches database number 7553. I'm kidding you. Here's where you upload it. And we've done that one. Now, when we go to chapter 2, which is lunches database 2 and 3, we'll start to see these get a little bit more complex, and we'll start to add some stuff to them. Okay, my friends, I started about 10 or 15 minutes early. It's 1:35, and I will be here Thursday for the ground-based portion of the course, and I look forward to seeing you. And let me say this, those of you who are listening out there, I want to see more people in class. I'm not happy with this, and what I might do is I might say I'm going to have to impose some kind of ground-based attendance policy in the midst of all this. I don't want to do it, but I want to see your smiling faces. I want to see you scowl as you come in and see you've got another hour. You've got another 75 minutes with me, because I like to torture you. All right, my friends. God bless you. Stay safe. And I will save this and post it over in the announcements, okay? So I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to stop the share. And then I'm going to stop the recording and save this.